Welcome to 1550, where sinking into a simple, warm bath is considered a deadly invitation for the plague.
It is 4 a.m., and the freezing stone of the kitchen cellar saps the little warmth left in your bones. You do not sleep on a mattress. You lie directly on the rushes, a tangled, damp mat of dried reeds that hides decades of spilled ale, rotting meat scraps, and dried dog feces beneath your body. The stench of deep decay is permanently woven into the fibers of your only garment, a coarse, itchy bodice of russet wool that has not been washed in months. Before you even attempt to stand, the biting begins. You feel the frantic, sharp crawl of fleas and body lice moving against your raw skin in the pitch black. With blackened, grease-stained fingernails, you reach under the heavy wool and crush them one by one. It is a quiet, rhythmic popping in the dark. This is your daily morning ritual as a Tudor scullery maid. You are Martha. In this wattle and daub cellar, you cannot even rely on a splash of Catholic holy water to ward off the demons you believe lurk in the shadows. The boy king Edward VI's drastic new Protestant reforms have stripped that ancient comfort away. You are utterly alone in the dark. You push yourself up, your bare feet brushing against the freezing, damp floorboards. The day has not truly started, and your hands are already stained with grime. You must move toward the cold hearth to begin your labor, but the punishing reality of the kitchen daylight is far worse than the biting insects. You drag yourself toward the cold hearth. Stealing fresh firewood from the royal forests is a severe crime, so you are forced to burn dried cow dung and wet green wood. As the weak flames catch, suffocating, acrid smoke instantly fills the kitchen, trapped by drafty horn-pane windows, real glass being a heavily taxed luxury. You hack violently, coughing up thick, black phlegm. This soot lung is your permanent morning greeting. You work in constant, quiet terror, knowing the chimney above is poorly constructed from cheap timber and clay, fully capable of sparking a devastating soot fire that could burn the entire house down. The physical grind begins before the sun rises. You scour heavy pewter plates not with soap, but with a harsh, abrasive mixture of river sand, wood ash, and stale urine. Your raw hands sting as you move to the hearth to tend the pottage. The massive iron pot is never truly emptied or washed. You simply throw new scraps, chunks of rock-hard horse bread made from dried peas, and questionable meat into the perpetual, lukewarm stew left over from the day before. Hours bleed away as you turn the heavy iron spit over the roaring fire. The intense heat blisters the skin on your face, while the relentless smoke leaves your eyes permanently bloodshot. When the dark closes in again, your only light comes from cheap tallow candles made of rendered sheep fat, filling the cramped wattle and daub cellar with the sickening stench of burning meat. When the cook delivers a vicious, unprovoked beating, you endure the blows in absolute silence. You know the terrifying reality of the 1547 Vagabond Act. If you are fired and caught begging on the streets, you will be branded with a red-hot V and forced into slavery. You survive the brutal, rat-infested cellar by making yourself invisible. But a sudden promotion is about to drag you upstairs, plunging you into the suffocating, inescapable intimacy of the master's bedchamber. You are pulled from the wattle and daub cellar and thrust upstairs as a chambermaid. The stinging smoke is instantly replaced by a different kind of suffocation, the overwhelming musk of unwashed bodies. The master of the house hasn't submerged himself in a hot bath in over a decade, terrified that opening his pores will invite the plague. To mask the stench, a heavy, sickening cloud of rosewater hangs in the air. He constantly chews fennel seeds and cloves to hide his rotting breath, spitting the chewed husks directly onto the woven floor mats for you to sweep up. Up here, the concept of privacy simply does not exist. The walls of the Tudor townhouse are incredibly thin, forcing you to hear every intimate, violent, or bodily sound made by the master and mistress. In the early dawn, you must quietly empty the master's Jordan, the overflowing chamber pot. while the entire family and their apprentices sleep in the same crowded room. The apprentices lie only inches away on truckle beds, small, low frames pulled out from directly beneath the master's massive oak bed every night.
As night falls, survival means keeping the outside world at bay.
Firmly believing that miasma, or foul air, causes all diseases, you tightly nail the bedroom windows shut. You trap the suffocating stench of sweat, urine, and bad breath inside the cramped room. But you are far more terrified of what waits outside. The panicked whispers have reached the household.
We have to leave
It is
now, before they come
1551,
for us.
and the sweating sickness has returned. It is a mysterious, brutal plague that can kill a perfectly healthy man in mere hours. Walking through the pitch-black house at 3 a.m., the creaking of the settling oak timbers sounds exactly like the restless souls of those who died of the sweat in this very room. Then, from the absolute darkness of the master's bed, you hear a sudden, wet gasp, and an unnatural, terrifying heat begins to radiate into the stifling air.
The panic of the sweat constantly looms,
But the grueling physical torture of your daily existence never pauses. Strict new religious laws enforce fish days on Fridays and Saturdays, chaining you to the cellar to scrape rotting, salt-crusted herring barrels. The harsh brine leaves your hands raw, blistered, and stinking for the rest of the week.
your body is a canvas of poorly treated injuries.
When a rusted butchering knife slips and deeply slices your hand, there is no clean cloth to bind it. The cook strictly orders you to pack the bleeding wound with dusty cobwebs gathered directly from the rafters. When boiling water inevitably splashes and scalds your arms, the mistress applies the standard Tudor remedy. She smears a thick, putrid paste of goose dung and butter straight over your raw burns.
The decay is inside you as well.
Your teeth are worn down and rotting, ground away by the fine stone grit left in your daily horse bread by the millstones. You regularly suffer agonizing stomach cramps, a result of the tapeworms breeding inside you from the parasite-riddled pork you prepare. You have no access to lye soap, which is too expensive and strips the skin raw. So you desperately try to scrub the grease from your face with handfuls of wet bran. The humiliation of your labor is endless. Following massive Tudor feasts, your most disgusting job is carrying away heavy brass bedpans sloshing with surfeit water, the vomit of guests who overate. Upstairs, when brushing the mistress's elaborate hair, you must carefully pick out her head lice and squash them flat against a silver mirror. During the freezing months, you suffer from agonizing chilblains on your bare feet, attempting to cure the swelling by rubbing them with hot, roasted onions. Fetching water means hauling heavy wooden buckets past the kennel, the open, sluggish sewer gutter running through the middle of the street, to reach the city conduit, where the drinking water is frequently tainted by the slaughterhouses just up the river. Your body is rapidly breaking down. But the psychological toll of surviving this house pushes you to desperate, hidden rituals just to keep the unseen horrors at bay. You survive the brutal daylight hours, but the encroaching night brings a completely different kind of terror. To protect yourself from the unseen, you rely on desperate, hidden folklore. Deep beneath the kitchen hearth, you have buried a witch bottle, packed tightly with your own urine, bent iron nails, and coarse strands of hair to deflect the curses of spiteful neighbors. You know the dark spaces of the house are crawling with more than just rats. During recent roof repairs, you found a dried, mummified cat purposefully bricked into the chimney. A grim ward designed to stop evil spirits from climbing down into the soot. Every mundane chore is driven by a profound, supernatural fear. Before baking the miserable horse bread, you meticulously slash a heavy cross into the top of every loaf, genuinely convinced it is the only way to stop the devil from sitting on the dough and preventing it from rising. Before leaving the kitchen, you pour a small saucer of fresh milk by the hearth, terrified that if you forget, a malicious hobgoblin will sour the ale and curdle the butter overnight. Upstairs in the bedchambers, you burn dried rosemary and frankincense, not for the pleasant smell, but attempting to physically burn away the invisible plague seeds suspended in the stale air. Even the way the master sleeps is dictated by dread. You must meticulously arrange his heavy pillows so he sleeps propped up in a nearly sitting position, because lying completely flat is considered a highly dangerous posture reserved only for the dead. At exactly 8 p.m., the heavy tolling of the curfew bell echoes through the filthy streets. By law, you must bury the hearth fire beneath thick layers of ash. The weak embers fade, plunging your wattle and daub world into absolute, terrifying darkness. As a foul-smelling fog rolls in from the marshy banks of the Thames, carrying the dreaded egg, you realize that surviving another night only guarantees you will wake up in a trap you can never escape. In the suffocating dark, your final grueling task remains. Because it is considered deeply shameful to show menstrual blood, you must scrub the mistress's soiled linen rags in absolute secret under the cover of the night. The heavy metallic smell rising from the water reminds you of the sheer horror of childbirth in this house, where you are forced to boil blood-soaked linens in massive copper vats with unwashed hands. You carefully avoid sweeping the floorboards after the sun goes down, terrified by the folklore that you might brush away the household's remaining good luck. But no amount of luck can save you from the brutal economic reality. The great debasement of the Tudor coinage has triggered extreme inflation, yet your wages, less than a few pence a year, are permanently fixed by the master's ledger. You live in constant fear of St. Anthony's fire, the terrifying ergot poisoning from moldy rye bread that causes convulsions and gangrene, knowing your meager coin cannot buy you anything safer than the rock-hard horse bread you already eat. You endure this torment in total silence. The strict household manuals dictate that a servant who speaks out of turn or swears will be heavily fined from their already pathetic wages. You are entirely bound to this suffering. By law, you cannot marry, nor can you leave your employment without the explicit written permission of the master. Sumptuary laws legally confine you to the coarse, itchy, russet wool that marks your lowly status to the world. You are a ghost, moving through the wattle and daub walls, existing only to absorb the filth and sickness of the family above. There is no escape, no upward climb, and no salvation. The terrifying reality of 1550 is that the house you clean, the hearth you tend, and the freezing floor you sleep on will eventually become your tomb. You will die in the very same house you serve.